Hey, what's up guys? JB here, and welcome back to Future Look. So over on the JP side, as has been the tradition, they have brought in a new mainline Final Fantasy collaboration as part of the 3.5-year anniversary celebration over on their side of the game. And this time it is going to be none other than Final Fantasy V. Now personally, this is one of the few mainline Final Fantasy games I haven't played all the way through. It didn't actually get an official release here in the US until much later on some of the portable handheld systems. In any event, we are going to have 3 new characters joining War of the Visions here as part of this collaboration with this game. And we're going to start today looking at Lenna. Now, absolutely stunning artwork here. As you can see, they always blow me away when they're sort of combine the original Amano style with the War of the Visions aesthetic. And as you may be able to tell by the colors here, Lenna is going to be joining the Wind element, and she is going to be a dedicated support unit. Now, similar to tanks, those don't really come around all that often. They're a little bit more rare into the game. Wind, though, already has some very nice support options amongst their roster, although at this point, Ayaka and Halloween Little Leela are just year 1 units. They're not quite as compelling as some of the newer options. So how is Lenna going to be able to set her apart, from those units and make a compelling case to join your team? Well, that's exactly what we're going to look at today, so let's get started. So Lenna is going to be joining War of the Visions as a 90 cost wind unit. She has a base 3-1 movement, and she can wear hats and cloth. Starting with Lenna's TMR, this is going to be her tunic. I do kind of like this one, but it is definitely going to be pretty niche. It has 2 effects. It gives a 40% magic and 25% crit evade to your party. I don't think we've seen crit evade all that often in terms of TMR effects, if ever, so that is one reason that I do like this one. It does have a nice liberal targeting radius here with the buff as well, which kind of makes it a little bit more flexible to use. Now, taking a look at the stats here next, it definitely has been a minute, since we looked at a support unit here on the channel, and statistically, they do tend to rank towards the bottom in a lot of these categories, and Lenna is going to be no exception here. Her base HP, as you can see, is very, very low. She gets a pretty good amount, though, from her board and her mastery ability, so it does sort of inch her a bit closer towards that average line, but at the end of the day, she is under 3,500, so that is going to put her at a below average level in terms of the entirety of the UR roster. Her magic value, though, as you can see, is quite nice, and that is certainly one of the key attributes that you want to look at for a dedicated support unit, and that's going to directly impact, how much they're able to heal you up in battle. Now, looking at her dex and luck, those are going to be both below average levels, and that's going to leave her accuracy value really at an abysmal level here. She's down amongst some of the lowest URs in the game, coming in at an innate 147 accuracy rate. So she is a very inaccurate unit. It's not really going to be the end of the world, though, in terms of Lenna. This is not someone that you're going to be looking at to sort of pop off against those evade units. In fact, I think in a lot of battles, she is really not going to be attacking at all. So I think in terms of the stats, she is going to be salvaged here a bit by, a pretty decent agility value here. Also very strong with her crit evasion, which does get boosted up by her 140 level awakening. So let's take a look at the mitigation numbers here next. She's coming in with 0 defense and 27 spirit. And that's definitely going to be one of the big strengths for this unit, that spirit value. She's going to be much stronger, going into those magical-based opponents. For resistances, we're looking at 5 to slash and missile. She's going to be neutral to strike, and her best one here is going to be that magic resistance coming in at 10. She is carrying a rather large weakness here to pierce damage at that -15. That's definitely one of the bigger weaknesses we've seen, amongst any units coming into the game as of late. And overall, this is a unit that's going to go down relatively quickly towards really any kind of physical damage here, just with that lack of defense, and these resistances here are rather pedestrian. Looking at the status ailment protection here, it's really not all that special either. She's got poison, sleep, and immobilize. So unfortunately, no resistances against any sort of the meta ailments, at least the ones that we've been seeing in the game as of late. Now for her mastery ability, Lenna gets 15% HP, which was factored into that total above. She is going to get 20% cast time reduction as well, and that is going to be very important for that unit, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through the video today. At level 140, she is going to get that 15 spirit and the crit evade on top of it, and those are also factored into those numbers we looked at. Most importantly, though, she is going to get an upgrade to her Job 25 ability. It is a very nice one, and we'll look a bit closer at that ability here in a few moments in the skills overview. So Lenna will be tagged as a magical support unit, so only 1500 HP up for grabs here at max reincarnation. Quite a bit of magic is available there, though, at that 180 value. So kind of considering those values, I'm not sure, how much it's going to be worth investing scrolls into this unit and really reincarnating her, all that much. And that's just kind of how I feel about support units in general. I think that, by and large, they are going to be able to do their job, whether you kind of go for this additional magic and HP here or not. Certainly, you might be able to find some breakpoints though, and maybe get her into a situation where, maybe she wouldn't die, with some of this additional HP on some hits that she might have, without it. Even still, though, I do think that, there's probably other units out there that you would want to prioritize those scrolls on first. They are very, very rare and expensive. All right, moving on now to passive and counter abilities. And as is standard, passive number 1 is going to be her best one here. It has 3 very nice effects coming in with it. 24% to her magic, 20 healing power, and then 15 area resistance. And that area resist in particular is very much needed for this unit. She doesn't have any elsewhere in her kit to kind of stack with that. Now for a general all-purpose build, I would look to pair passive number 1 with number 3, which is a speed cast equivalent. And this is going to get her to an innate 45% reduced casting time. She does have a little bit of flexibility here. There are some other nice passives. You could lean a bit into anti-magic or anti-earth with options number 4 or 5. And then she does have the Green Mage Subjob with access to Emerald Echo, which is passive number 6 here. And that I think could be interesting in some cases where you might be looking to get a little bit more leverage and mileage out of the buffs that she has in her kit. Now for counter abilities, she does have 2 very nice ones here. The first one has a 100% chance of triggering with the condition on it that it is missile damage coming in. And if that does trigger, it will reduce that damage by a flat 30%. Now the second choice works in very much the same way, but this one is going to trigger against magical type damage only. This one just has a reduced chance of proccing off, just a 50% chance on this one. So both of these are sort of a newer generation of counters that we've been seeing coming in on units of late. You will want to choose the one that sort of best fits the type of enemies that you're seeing most often out there on the battlefields. If neither of them apply, she does have a third one, which is a Dispel counter, and that's one's not too shabby either. All right, guys, let's dive into the main kit here next, and we're going to start with her buffs, and she does get 3 of them here in the main job. Buff 1 is a self buff. It's going to give her 25% slash resistance and a protect status on top. This is a very nice self buff for her, especially in light of some of those innate weaknesses and kind of the lack of general, physical and slash mitigation that she has innately. And I think, you would enable this to kind of help hedge against that just a little bit. Her second buff here is a party buff, and this one is going to buff both herself and her allies with a massive 40 spirit. I think this is actually the highest that we've seen for spirit on a party buff. Now this one, along with that, will drop her hate by 3 there as well. So I think that this really kind of helps build upon her natural strength, in terms of that base spirit that we looked at just a moment ago. And certainly very nice that she can pass this on to the party as well if you are seeing some magical opponents out there. Now finally, buff 3, this is going to be a targetable re-raise, but not only will it re-raise your target, it is going to get a self re-raise there as well. So kind of works similar to Velus's haste ability where, both units get the benefit. Now she gets just a single cast of this one, but when you do take Lenna to level 140, this skill does get enhanced in that it will gain 2 additional effects with the re-raise. It's going to get a 20% earth resistance buff and then 40% elemental chain protection. And this is actually going to be our first party buffable version of that particular mechanic that just came in recently into the game. So I really like this one. You could stack that very nicely with some of the vision cards that have come out and even some of the units out there that are starting to get this as part of their passive abilities. All right, moving into the main skills here now, and she has just a single attack spell amongst her kit. This one's going to be a range 4. It has a cross AoE, bringing it up to a total range of 5. This one has a range height of 2, with an additional there on the area of effect. This one's coming in with a large 220% mod. Just a single effect on the skill, and it will restore 25 CT to herself. So just a single attack here in the main kit, but I do actually like this one. I think it's pretty decent for her. Dedicated support units, they rarely have those turn cycles to be able to get out damage. But, when she does have that opportunity, it will kind of bring her turn back up quicker in battle where she then can start supporting again. So, I do actually like that quite a bit. Now, of course, we aren't always looking towards our support units, to be pumping out a bunch of damage. So let's take a look at our actual support skills here next. And the first one's going to be a single target range 4, range height 2 healing ability. This one has that 210 times potency, and it's going to come in with a cast speed of 360. So nothing all that unique here on this one, just your standard Curata equivalent heal. I do wish that this had just a little bit bit extra on it, you know, considering that she has just 3 active skills here in the kit. But, you know, a heal is a heal, so, you know, it's going to do its job. Now, the second heal here is going to be a large diamond AoE version. This one's going to have up to a range of 5 there on the area of effect. Again, this is going to come in with that 210 times healing potency. So this is going to be similar to a Curaga, you know, in terms of the large AoE and heal that it gets here. This one, again, is also going to be that 360 casting speed. Now, this heal does come with an additional effect on it, and it's going to boost both the physical and magical damage of your party by a flat 20%. So this is similar to the effect that we've seen on Sorrow and Bradley's Indomitable Spirit buffs, and also to the recent Genji Glove equipment that we got in the recent event. Now that 20% damage here, you know, basically how that works is it's a final damage modifier. So like I said, a flat 20% increase to your damage. Very, very strong. This is an exceptional skill here for Lenna. Now it is exactly these 2 skills here that you need as much non-attack skill activation reduction in your build as possible, so that when she moves in to heal someone, you're going to be getting those spells out as quickly as possible. And I do actually have a build for her that will put these abilities here into a single game tick of cast time, which I think is about as good as it gets, you know, for a non-instant spell. Now, last but not least, we do have Lenna's Limit Burst. This one is going to be another AoE heal for her, coming in that large diamond area of effect. The potency of this one is increased, you know, as we've seen on other Limit Bursts in the past, like Ayaka's or Resnick's, and it is going to be coming in at that 310 times value. Now, this one has an additional effect on it as well, and it will buff the party with Protect and Shell. So a very cool Limit Burst. You know, not only is it going to heal all of your targets to full, you know, pretty easily, but, you know, it will actually make them harder to kill at the same time with that Protect and Shell effect. Now, while there are dispels out there to those 2 statuses, they are much less common than barrier breaks these days, so definitely nice utility to have here for Lenna. All right, let's take a look at Lenna's Subjobs. Her main job sub is going to come in with 2 additional abilities. 1 attack skill and 1 support skill. So skill 1 here is going to be a range 3 with a 185% mod, and it has kind of a T-shaped AoE here. Just a single effect on this one. It's got a 40% attack and magic break. Not super interesting, I would say, for autoplay. With the support focused AI, you know, as we've kind of discussed, they're generally not going to be breaking out these attack skills all that often. Now, skill number 2, I do actually like this one quite a bit. Gets up to a range of 4 here on the cross AoE. Just a single effect on it, but it is a very nice one. It's going to restore 40 AP there to anyone in the target radius. So I do believe this is the highest amount of AP restoration that we've seen on one of these party buffable type skills. So that is pretty notable in of itself. I think you could do some really cool things here with this ability and kind of hedge against some units' weaknesses if they are lacking in that AP. All right, subjob number 2 here, and it is the job that debuted with Sweetheart Miranda over on the Japanese side. We don't actually know what the job name is going to be here for us yet in global, so I am just going with Miranda's job as the name here. Now, this job is definitely more offensive natured. It has kind of a bruisery mix of both a little bit of mitigation as well as some magical slash damage skills. The job itself comes with 2 really nice buffs here. The first one's going to get that shell effect along with 25% magic resist, so almost kind of a mirror of the one that she had in her main kit with the slash resist and protect. So I do think that could be very nice, you know, depending on the matchups you're seeing. That kind of is, again, kind of building on that natural strength of kind of anti-magic that Lenna has. Now, on top of that, she does get another source of re-raise here. This one is going to be self-only, so that does give her a second cast that she can use maybe in a second strike for Guild Wars, for example. Now, that one is also an enhanced re-raise. It does come with 15 area resist as well while that re-raise is active. Now, the third subjob here for Lenna is going to be that Green Mage job. I do like Vitalize and Imperil, you know, they're pretty decent skills. That's really about it, though. You know, outside of that, this job doesn't have a ton to offer in my view. So personally, I think in most cases, I would be looking at either the main job sub there or the Miranda subjob. They both have, you know, much better skills, you know, to get access to, especially those support skills. All right, guys, moving on here. And there are actually 2 Final Fantasy V Vision cards that do come as part of this event. Very strange though, because Lenna's staff mage job group is not included on either one of them. So in terms of those cards, I will take a closer look at them when, you know, later on when I do look into both Barris and Bart's. But specifically in Lenna's case, let's take a look at her weapon class anyway. It's actually one of the more developed ones that we've seen in the game so far, with 8 total cards, you know, as of her release in the game. Now, in terms of making a team purely out of, you know, the staff units that are pictured here, I'm not sure how great that would actually work out. There isn't any tank, as of today in the group. There are some decent damage dealers, and obviously there's quite a few support units here, but really lacking, when it comes to any sort of front line purely within this group. So until then, I think that you will be looking to mix them in with maybe some other groups that might complement them. So far, they've actually shared cards the most with the Axe group, sharing 3 different cards, with that particular weapon. But at least as of now, I don't think that there's really any notable tank within that team either, unless maybe you were looking at Moraga, maybe you could find some nice synergy there. So I think in terms of Lenna and these particular job-based vision cards, I think in most cases, you're going to be looking at either a mono or dual element synergies if you end up using them at all, at least for the immediate future. Now we do have a new weapon that's going to be coming in alongside Lenna as well. This one I have is just the Magi staff because that's what they called her TMR staff in FFVE. I think it's going to be a really nice weapon specifically for her. The unconditional passive on this one is that 15 healing power, so something that we have already today on the rune staff. For Lenna though, it is going to get 3 more conditional passives: 30% magic, 15% HP, and 8% agility. And that agility in particular is something that we don't often see, as a percentage on equipment. So I think that this is going to be a very nice piece here for Lenna, and one that you're going to want to use in most cases. Now, another piece of equipment coming in from the event, I believe this one is going to be coming in from the Trials of Reckoning. And this is going to be the pendant or necklace that both Ferris and Lenna do have in the game. Now, I am highlighting the magic version here as well, but I think that the barrier one, could be decent as well. This one's going to be coming in with that 10% missile resist, along with the ailment resist there of Silence, Charm, and Doom. Now on top of that, it does have some conditional passives here for the Final Fantasy V cast. We're going to get 20% cast reduction, and this one does apply to both attacking and supporting skills, and that the latter there is something that's extremely rare to see on any type of equipment. So that is going to be very, very strong for Lenna. And then lastly, we are going to get that 5% human resist there on top of it. So just some nice impenetrable mitigation added there on top. So I really like this piece of equipment specifically for Lenna, and we'll take a closer look at what it can do in the mock build here in a moment. All right, guys, flashing over to our timeline now for 2023. And here in Global, we have just got Reagan this week, and we are going to be expecting to see Lenna and the Final Fantasy V collaboration in just about 3 months from the release of this video. And of course, Lenna here will be coming in alongside both Bartz and Ferris. So as you can see on the timeline here, Lenna is now what has become that rare 90 cost unit in the game, just surrounded, by a sea of 100 cost units here. She does also serve that dedicated support function, and as I said earlier, those type of units really don't come around all that often. So certainly could be an attractive pull option, I think, for a lot of players out there. Gumi, though, at least at the moment, in terms of the wind element, they really have taken a break from it, after a pretty strong 2022. As you can see here on the timeline, no other wind element, units other than Lenna. On the flip side, though, ice is continuing to get stacked up. You can see there Reagan, Howlett, and then Celebratory Jaden is the most recent unit over in JP. There certainly, though, is a need for wind units in the game. As we've seen with King Bradley just getting released, Earth is becoming very, very strong at the moment, and it's only set to get better with Dialdo coming in shortly after that. So, definitely a lot to think about here in terms of, pull plans over the next several months. Okay, guys, so here it is. Here is the mock builds. And as I was just alluding to there, this is going to be an anti-Earth setup. So, what do we actually want to focus on if we are going up against Earth? Well, first of all, we are going to want some debuff resistance, both elemental and defense based. That's going to give us a chance to block some of the key imperils that, Earth units like Bradley and Queen Macherie like to put out. Now, on top of that, we are going to want some crit evasion here, as well as some Earth resistance in the build. Now, leading the charge, for my front line and the team here is going to be June. Her upgraded Stormwind Ren that she gets, as part of her 140, that is going to completely shut down Bradley's oppressive counter abilities. And then alongside June, I am bringing Flag Bearer Glaciella. She's going to be able to remove Bradley's courage, and then importantly, she is bringing that pierce damage, which is actually the only damage type that Dialdo is innately weak to. Now here in Global today, Glaciella is still kind of stuck at that level 120, but she has just hot off the presses in JP, gotten her 140 awakening in JP, and it is quite good in my opinion. Definitely an above average awakening for her. She's going to be very, very strong once again. Now in terms of equipment here in the build, I'm going to be going with both of the pieces there that we just looked at. That pendant in particular, I'm going to be combining that with the speed cast passive and really trying to maximize the speed of her spells. That's going to put her at a 65% reduced casting speed, and that means that her heals now are all going to be at a 1-tick casting zone. So even after her limit burst is gone, she's going to have no issues getting those heals out quickly and keeping her allies topped up. Now I do have Yuna's TMR here for insurance as well. That's going to be another instant heal that she has access to, and this one, just like her limit burst, is going to give her that protection shell effect that she can give to her teammates. So I do really like that combined with Jum. Even if the enemy managed to dispel those effects that she has on her personal buff, Lenna has a couple of ways to buff that back onto her during the mid-fight. Now for an Esper, I am going to be using Dark Ramu. He can get up to 5% earth resistance if you do spec into it on his board, but I do really like him on Lenna, particularly for the TP, the agility, and the slash resistance he can get as well. Now if you don't have Dark Ramu, Typhon I think can be a nice anti-earth option there as well for the natural earth resistance. Now, in terms of the vision cards, a win build is always going to start off with that Culmination card or Sadali's vision card. Still one of the best cards in the entirety of the game to date. I'm going to combine that one with More the Merrier's card, which is going to bring some additional earth resistance there for the party. Another nice option there, if you don't have that one, could be the Dark Ramu card there as well. Now, Jum here is going to be carrying that Golden Aramon card for the magic resistance and the dexterity, as well as a gift like no other for the attack value and HP. And then on Glaciella, we're going to have the Dark Tetra for the unit resistance and human killer, and then the Near Vision card for the luck and crit damage. Now moving down into the Trust Stones, Stone 1 is going to carry that debuff resistance that we mentioned, crit evade and luck there on Stone 2. Almost always I have HP and luck here on this stone, but in Lenna's case, remember that she does have HP already on her staff. And then finally on Stone 3, I'm going to have that Pierce and Earth resistance, and I'm going to be tying all of these things into an HP set for the additional all element resistance. Now on the right side of the Trust Stone builds here, staples for me, when it comes to mages are always going to be that cast time reduction, magic, and healing power. But again, in Lenna's case, she does have all of those already covered, between her equipment already. So here we're just going to be looking to fill in some offensive passives. Honestly, these are all kind of whatever, so you can kind of do what you want. I gave her a little bit of accuracy and dexterity, as well as some penetration values. I think the most important thing here, though, is that you do tie these into an agility set. Always important, I think, for your support units to be moving as quickly as possible and get as much, turn economy as they can, in the battle. So that is the build, guys. I didn't go extreme anti-earth here. Of course, you could double up on the earth resistance vision cards if you wanted to. Personally, for me, I like to keep the build a little bit more flexible and not dive too heavily into any one area, just to give myself more options, depending on what comes up in Guild War. But, you can see from the stats here, she should be tanky enough to take a hit even from non-earth opponents. She does have a pretty good amount of area resist here in the build and a very nice crit evade total here as well. Now, as always, if you are interested in taking a look at the finer details on this build, I will include a link to it in the description below. So what is my verdict today on Lenna? Starting with the positives, this is a unit that's able to reach a very fast casting time if you build for it. Something that we don't often see on dedicated support units. This is going to allow her to get her healing off very quickly in battle, while having her less worried about actually losing her allies mid-cast. Now her heals don't just top off your health bar though, they also bring some nice mid-fight buffs, both offensive and defensive in nature. And she's going to bring that with more traditional buffs that include a targetable re-raise, a large party spirit buff, and Lenna also does have some pretty flexible mitigation options that are going to be available to her and kind of help keep her alive in battle, including 2 powerful counter abilities, as well as a self-protect or shell that she can put onto herself. This is also the first unit coming to the game that does have that buff to put that elemental chain protection onto another party member, which can certainly be very valuable, in certain matchups out there. On the more negative side, though, Lenna's natural mitigation strength is really tuned towards more anti-magic, and she will go down a lot more quickly towards physical attackers. And especially so when you think about any sort of pierce damage that might be coming in, she does carry that large 15% weakness to that damage type. Now, outside of the healing, her main survival mechanic is that she's really relying on that re-raise mechanic to kind of keep her alive and give her that get out of jail free card in battle. And while that certainly is very nice, in the current state of the game, there are just so many units now that are able to remove that very, very easily. Now, on top of those things, Lenna is not bringing any sort of time or speed support to the party. She's completely lacking when it comes to buffing the party with any kind of haste, quicken, or CT mechanics. Now, although she does have that nice re-raise effect, she doesn't have any access to a raise or full life, anywhere in her kit. Personally, I'm not sure how big a negative that is, these days. We have seen other meta support units like Velis and Resnick get by perfectly fine without it. Now, my last point here is that at least as of her release over on the JP side about a month ago, there were many reports of AI issues that heavily impacted her use in auto PvP. That is actually something that Gumi has addressed relatively quickly here with the recent patch update over in the JP side. So hopefully, for us, when Lenna does come along, they will give that to us, on her release. So just kind of summing everything up here, this is going to be another nice 90 cost support unit. They don't really come around all that often, as we've mentioned. So I think that she's definitely could be worth a look, based on that fact alone. There is also the King Bradley factor, who has turned into an absolute monster in this game already. And he's only going to get better, once Dialdo gets released here very, very soon. So Lenna, despite having some of those physical deficiencies, by having that natural elemental advantage over Bradley and the earth element, she can definitely help you out in those matchups there very, very well. I think though that the most interesting thing about Lenna is that her heals are really going to be amping up your power, during the middle of the fight with those additional buffs that come packaged with them. And I think that that could be playing a pretty big role in sort of swinging a close battle in your favor, and put you over the top. So there it is, guys. That is going to be my look today into Lenna. I think that, she does project as a nice upgrade, or at a minimum, a nice alternative to Ayaka in a Wind's team. I do really like the added offensive potency that she can put onto her allies. I think that is probably the strongest thing in her kit. Now, is Lenna going to be the next, meta support unit in the game? Well, I don't know if I would go that far yet. Certainly I think, when you look at Resnick and Velis, I think that Lenna at least projects to be, on a similar plane to them. Maybe not so much better or worse, in any one direction. In terms of Wind, though, despite them having been in a little bit of a downswing here, until recently in JP, the awakenings that came out this week for both Sodali and Glaciella were very, very strong, and I can definitely see Wind kind of ascending back into the top tier once again. So certainly from a mono or dual element perspective, I think Lenna projects very nicely into that team that we looked at, and I can see Wind maybe ascending back into the conversation of some of the better PvP elements in the game. So with that said, let me know what you guys think about Lenna in the comments down below. Are you going to grab her, or are you looking at Ferris maybe instead? While you're down there, if you enjoyed the video today, hit that like button. It really helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. And if you like what I'm doing here on the channel, hit that subscribe button if you want to see more. And that's really all that I have to say for today. So as always, stay safe out there, and I'll see you guys in the next one.